Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Rome Floyd Chamber Small Business Spotlight. This is Rome Business Radio. We are broadcasting from the Hardy Realty Studios on Broad Street in downtown Rome, Georgia, and we work in cooperation with the Rome News Tribune. I'm Roger Manus with Rome Business Radio.
And I'm Pam Power-Smith with the Rome Floyd Chamber of Commerce. And with us today, we have our special guest, John and Severo from the Rome News Tribune. So thank you for being here so much.
Hello.
And then we also have Amber from the Rome Floyd Chamber also, typically needing to fact check me on a regular basis.
That's a very important.
I have my notepad.
Fact checking, that's big in the news.
That's why I'm here for John, is to fact check him.
You have to have somebody.
It's obvious that this is going to be nothing but 30 minutes of hilarity. So I'll just shut up. How is everybody? Happy New Year. This is our first show of the new year. How we doing?
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year. It is our
Glad
first
to be the first show
Yeah.
of 2023. That's pretty good.
Big deal.
My only question is, since I've never done this podcast at this location, I've done it once before somewhere else. I didn't realize there was like a big open window on the street. I thought it would be like Good Morning America, where people would be outside with signs. I'm very disappointed.
I was about to say, are you feeling like you're underappreciated?
Clearly, y'all were unprepared for us, because I was hoping, people would be standing out there with homemade signs, cheering, and
Well, I don't mean to burst your bubble. Normally there are hundreds of people. It really depends upon the guest.
I got you.
I will warn
I'll just
you,
leave.
I'll get distracted
me
sometimes.
too.
So if you see me turning my head to see who's walking by, no offense to anyone.
Well, we're very appreciative to Hardy Realty in this town, as just about every organization is, for all that they do in the community, and they've let us use this as our studio. So yeah, passersby sometimes just kind of stop and wave, and we get distracted.
Yes.
They're shopping up and down Broad Street. So let's talk newspaper business. You guys are you are the longest tenured staff member in the newsroom. We were chatting before the show.
I am. As in sitting in the newsroom, I'm the longest that's been, I've been there the longest. So it feels weird to be like the senior, the old guy on the block. But I am, because everybody else, they came in just a little bit after me, the people that are there now. So it's just
You,
very.
John, you came in.
I think you said you came in here in 2004.
2004, May of
2006. Actually, at the end of 2006. So you're even older than that.
And it's crazy to think how, since we've been there all that time, when you're in it, you just kind of get used to how things change. But to look back and to think about how the industry and how our newspaper itself has changed, it's crazy. When I was there, we had a department for photography. So we had like 4 to 6 photographers that would. Now we have no photographers. Like
It's you two.
Yes, and so we take our own picture. Things like that. Like the newsroom was filled with people. Now it's not filled with with 15, 16 people. Now it's just 2 or 3, and we have to do all the work that people expect in a newspaper with a much smaller staff. It's very strange to live through that.
Well, not to mention what you guys have lived through is the technology transition to online and digital and social, and that's all. Does that affect? I mean, obviously it affects workflow, but how does it affect your editorial decisions? What goes where, when? Websites and print and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it certainly does. I mean, online is a 24/7 deadline, and when you're not, when you also have to put out a newspaper as well. So the print product that has to be sent, you have a very firm deadline on that, because it has to get plated, it has to go to print, it has to do all those things. You have to decide, okay, what needs to go right now, and prioritizing that workflow is a very important thing every day, where we're like, okay, Severo, we need to have this like now. Like, I need to go out here now. I need to get this done now. And then all that stuff can
Pronto.
wait. Or, I'm going out to, if we have an emergency, then it's all hands on deck. So, despite the fact that Severo is primarily features, which is, lighthearted, like more, does a column, things like that. If it's all hands on deck, at that point, Severo's in it. Generally I'll be out in the field. I'll be calling things into Severo. He's posting them, letting people know what's going on, getting it out to social media, that kind of thing as well. And so the role has changed. And I mean, it's like so many businesses where you have to know how to do everything.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's not just writing, or it's not just photography, or it's not just knowing, hey, I need to take a video, or I need to do this. And it's exercising good judgment. I just snapped. So meaning exercising good
Insert
judgment.
a snap here. Imagine John snapping.
And right now we're at a time when we, and many other newsrooms, where there's a delicate balance. So there are some of our customers who get and love the print edition, and they want they want what happened at their grandson's Boy Scout meeting. They want to know the lady down the street turned 104. They want a story about that.
As he's intimating, those are generally our older customers.
Yes, and there's no disrespect there. That's just a demographic, and they want to know about that dog that was rescued, that was roaming around their neighborhood, and they want a story about that, and they want to open the paper tomorrow morning and read that. Then we have customers that care nothing about those things. They want to know what happened at the city commission meeting, and they want to know now. And so again, with a much smaller staff, we have to make sure that we please one demographic that wants it in the paper and wants certain kind of coverage, and then we also have to please a totally different age demographic that wants stuff immediately online and only the big, important, hard news stuff. And again, we can't, those two groups don't care about each other, what the other wants. They just care about what they want. And we have to care about what everybody wants and try to please everybody. And that's really tough.
Yeah. And we need that column. We need it now. And it better be funny.
Yes. Oh, for sure. And we'll tell you about it if it's not funny. Or if I don't think it's funny. Yes,
that's
I get that a lot.
True. And then you have this, like with the online thing, you have a 24-hour, panel of critics that are perfectly willing to jump in at any point in time and tell you exactly what you've done wrong.
In the world, people might call them trolls if you're doing it individually.
For sure.
And so,
but critics is a good word.
Yeah, well, try to be polite, right? Don't be a troll. But so if you are on deadline, you are on that immediate deadline, and there is an emergency, or trying to move something quickly to let people know what's going on. Oh, God bless you if you made a mistake in a headline, or if
or if somebody's name is misspelled, or you get one detail wrong
5 minutes later.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing, we get people. So I always tell some of my friends, like, if you, in most other jobs, if you make a mistake, your boss or your supervisor might come and say, hey Pam, this was wrong. Could you fix that?
And don't do it again.
Yeah, don't do it. Whatever. If we make a mistake, we have phones ringing, we have emails coming in, we have commenters on the Facebook page telling us that we suck and the Rome News Tribune is a piece of crap, and we're, just a scandal rag. We get crapped on all day long, all the time.
Isn't it great to live in this day and time of 2023 that people do this?
And there is like great positive feedback. We get that. We get thank you notes, we get letters, and that's wonderful. It just happens to be that some of the most vocal people are the ones that they just criticize, and they don't realize that we don't have all day or 2 or 3 days to work on this story and to get everything absolutely perfectly correct, as well as get all the information about the story.
For instance, I was putting together our Georgia Press Association Award submissions like not too long ago, and there's one category, and it's called deadline reporting, which to me is the most ridiculous category because
it's all of
we do everything on deadline. Like if I wrote a feature story about that dog who swam a river to get back to it, whatever, you know what I mean? I did it on deadline because I have a deadline to meet, and I have a paper to get out, and I have, all those things. So it's just like the idea, be it a high profile court case.
Hey, Tracy Schroeder. Tracy Schroeder, wife of John Schroeder, was just walking by the studio. So.
But, if you have that kind of thing, it's all we're doing it at that moment, at that time. And preparation, I think, is really the key for that.
Now, we didn't talk about this. What are your job titles?
Right. So I think my title is executive editor.
It is.
Which means I'm over. Okay. Title. So let's say this. I'm over everything that's in the newspaper. So if you don't like something that's in the newspaper, I'm the guy you fuss at. If you like something that's in the newspaper, you can fuss at me too. I mean, whatever, I'll take it. The delivery of that newspaper, I'm not over. Okay.
Or the ads in the newspaper, he's not over.
Let's be clear.
I will try and help anyone any way I can if I have half a second to help you. But that's my job. If it's in the newspaper, whatever's in the newspaper, that's me.
Yeah. and I have a couple different titles. I think I'm technically associate editor.
Associate editor.
Yeah, so
but
I'm
you're primarily over features.
The fact
Yes.
that neither of you know your titles is interesting.
Well, it's
but
because we have
okay.
so many titles. So I'm associate editor,
reporter.
but I'm also features editor, which is I'm the editor of the features section, and then I'm a columnist, which I think is what most people know.
Well,
my writing.
When he says the feature section, that's the art and entertainment section.
Arts and entertainment and
comes out
what
Thursday.
people would call that comes out on Thursdays, and what people would call like society or just
think we call
human
it Roman
interest.
Life.
It's called Roman Life, and it's comes out in our weekend edition. So but because as John was saying, it could be a Monday or Wednesday, and if I'm not writing stories for my particular sections, he might say, "Hey, could you give me a story about this? Blah blah blah. This just happened. This guy just sent this picture. It's really cool. Can you give him a call?" And I do a story for what we call the daily, just the daily paper.
Well,
so
you recently did a really nice story about Fort Giddings and Kane.
I did. They had an anniversary, and they were
Yeah.
very nice. And I did
A
story about
long-time
them.
chamber member. Thank you for
Yes.
getting
Speaking of anniversaries and longtime chamber members, we were talking about it's our 180th year.
The Rome News
this year.
Tribune. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
pretty.
What's the gift they tell you to get for 180?
Cash. Right, yeah.
I think we
request.
talked about some other items.
Yeah.
I suggested green dot cards because I hear those are super popular.
I say bourbon and cash.
Yeah.
That's the gifts that I would like
In
to
that
receive.
in that order.
In
Got
that
it.
order for
So
the
noted.
180th year. But that's pretty cool because we were talking
that
about
the
this
bourbon
earlier.
anniversary?
It is the bourbon anniversary. But we were talking about that in whether it had a name like the Rome News Tribune or some other name, the local newspaper has been publishing since before the Civil War has continued through,
Right.
so that's pretty cool. And we hope that we can continue, serving the public that way. Obviously at that time, the news there was a different feel to it, and there was a necessity to it that today are, like I said, we have to change because people are getting their news in different ways. So we try to offer it in different ways, but that's this publication has been serving this community for 180 years, and that's pretty
Y'all should
special.
do some vintage articles in celebration of like do an old fashioned society page.
So as we
like
talk
Pam
about
was
deadline-
downtown in a
You're
red
No,
dress.
you would be Mrs.
Yes.
Robert Smith
Yeah.
was downtown. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a section in the paper called 50 and 100 years ago,
Yes.
and every weekend. And so we run stories as they ran 50 and 100 years
I
ago.
love that
So
piece.
it's written the way they would have. And it's so funny. And sometimes I send it to the other news, like to our coworkers, because some of it is so funny the way they wrote and they spoke up. So they'll say, Mr. John Bailey got 4 new head of cattle on Thursday and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then they'll say, Mrs. Robert Smith. So they're talking about you, and they'll say, Mrs. Robert Smith was seen walking down Broad Street in a beautiful new dress. The leggy blonde is quite a filly these days. But it's so crazy how that's how they spoke up, about women,
hilarious.
or how they spoke about African Americans, or how they spoke about, people who are selling moonshine. And it was and that's why we run it, because it's funny and interesting to
So
see
different.
the things that were important back then and how they worded it, how they talked
also
about
how much
it.
they editorialize just in regular.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just absolutely crazy. Meaning adding opinion, like just a distinct opinion, like when he said leggy blonde, that kind of thing. Just little stuff like that was very commonplace.
How would they have done a Facebook post?
Oh, they probably loved it. They love social media right now.
They
You could
missed
just throw
out.
anything.
They did. But it's so crazy
Well,
to
at
read
that
about.
point, they were that.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
think about it, like they were that.
In print.
They kind
They
of
were
spun
behind. They were behind by 24 hours.
But
It's
but
fine.
they'll tell, or more than 24 hours. But they'll talk about how Mrs. Jane Smith was visiting her family in Rome from Birmingham. They're going to have they're going to have
visitors.
Sunday brunch, and they're just a visitor from out of town was in the news. Or if your horse and buggy got stuck in the mud on the side of the road, and other people had to come and help you take your goods out of it, that was in the news too. And then it's funny to see how as time went on how the horse and buggy stories turned into the first automobile on Broad Street, struck a pedestrian on June 24th, things like that. So it just kind of follows the history of everything and people and the community. And it's
what's
so
interesting
cool
about the 50-year ago column is that every once in a while, then I get a phone call from the person that was in that. I was like, I remember y'all need to follow up on.
I'm going to date myself, but I can remember because I would hit, Roger Manus Jr. celebrated his 8th birthday and had a party with friends and
a pony.
And the cake was decorated with this.
Right.
And
at that time, there was a person that was their job.
Yeah, there was a society editor and their
stuff together.
I wonder what the salary was for that.
Not a whole lot.
I guess that ties into something I did want to touch on here. Small town papers, so critically important to the community, and obviously with the technology change over the last 20 years, you guys have adjusted. Sure. But the paper is still intrinsic to the fiber and fabric of the business community and working with the chamber. So maybe y'all could all talk about like how y'all help each other in this network that is Rome, Georgia, and connectivity and relationships and business and news and information and things like that.
I'm going to let Amber answer that, but first I just want to say thank you to both John and Severo. They are very kind to the chamber, but Amber is kind of the one that feeds all the information to them.
Because it's got to be fact checked, right?
Yes. I'm not allowed.
And we appreciate the right thing being said.
We try.
And Amber does.
Well, John gets a lot of crazy text messages from me, I feel like sometimes. I'm like, can you look into this? Or Pam, I'm like, Pam, we have somebody that's called that needs an article ran about this. So we have a lot of members that they have cool things going on, and we want to connect them to John and Severo and like really get them where they need to be. So we have a lot of events and ribbon cuttings, and like they said earlier, there's only a few of them in the office, so they can't be at everything. So we try to share all that with them. We have a standing Friday email that goes and I send everything for the week, and then they have everything they need that they can run throughout the next week. So we try to share everything that we have going on. But then a lot of times we have, just members call and they say, we have this really cool new thing going on and we want to get it out there, but we don't know how. So we try to connect those when we get those phone calls as well.
And from your perspective, working with the chamber,
that's what we appreciate about not just the chamber, but other people and businesses that took the realization that we can't be everywhere with our staff. We just can't be at everybody's event or everybody's, whatever they have going on. So we love it when people realize that, hey, if I take a couple good photos, and let me stress, like good photos, because sometimes people send us grainy stuff and they're like, why wasn't it in there? Yes. So look at the photos that run in the paper, and that's sort of the quality that we want, but we appreciate when people send us photos or information. And listen, if it's something that we are able to follow up on ourselves and maybe go out to your business or to your home, we'd love to do that, but we can't do that for everybody. So we love when people understand that, and they send us maybe a couple photos and a little write-up, and we might can piggyback on that and call somebody and say, hey, I'll do a little interview. Thank you for sending that. That's a great start for us. Or like a press release. We love press releases as a jump start to a story, so
that's how you would introduce it. And so there's that point where it's like a feature or just a little tidbit of something going on in Rome or Floyd County. And then there's where I believe, hey, that's news. That's something we should put our put our resources into. Because with limited resources, I have to look at it and say, okay, is that worth me? Because when we go cover, let's say this, when we go cover an event, or we do a story about a business, or we do that, that's money I'm spending. Understand? Like that's resources, that's time, that's money, that's print, that's paper, that's ink, that's all the things that goes into it. That's promoting your business. So when we do that, remember that we did that. We appreciate it. But, and you said this, and I don't mind segueing into it because I know this is a business podcast. Small town newspapers are suffering.
Yeah.
We've seen in the past 2 years, we've seen more small town newspapers fold, close, and die.
Yeah.
Than ever before. And I'm not going to say, we're we've been economically hit since 2020 back to back to back to back. And And, if you appreciate having a newspaper and a news source that's not going to jump on every single little small thing and try to blow it out of the water and make everybody look terrible, if you want a news source that's going to sit back and actually consider the issues and try to give you good information and tell you where that information is coming from. If you want that news source, you've got to help us support it. And we love supporting our local businesses. We love supporting our local schools. Mm-hmm. We love supporting our local government. And I'll say that, they all do a great job.
Most of the time.
Well, you have to.
Everybody most of the time.
This is what I'm saying. You have to look at it over a stretch.
Yep.
Everybody makes a bad decision. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody has an employee that does something stupid. Hands down, everybody. And so,
why were you looking at him?
Because it's usually me. I own that. I own it. That's me.
Not to take it on a dark note, keep it light, but that's the case, and that's where the industry's going. That's not just the Rome News Tribune.
So we hear a lot. I see this a lot in our comments, or people just say Rome is small. So a lot of people know us,
Right.
and so people will say, I'll hear on the whether they post it on the comments. Usually on our Facebook page, you'll hear people say, "I can't believe the Rome News wants me to pay for this. I refuse to pay to read this story." Okay, that's fine. And you obviously you don't have to pay for something that you don't want, but then don't complain that you're not getting this information when it's there. You just don't want to pay for it. And today, just like I tell my friends this, because I have friends that'll say the same thing. And I say, just like you would pay for your cable, just like you pay for your internet, you pay for water, it's a service, and people, I have to be paid to do this service, so we can't just give away everything for free. Sure, a long time ago, the newspaper online used to be for free, and now it's not. Now you pay.
Print at that point, print revenues and advertising revenues in print, and I'm saying this, supported that. So if that ever came back, great, we could probably do it again. Print revenues, advertising revenues in print fell off with the advent of social media. This is an industry thing. This isn't just local. And so we had to figure out a way, because we have to pay bills. We have to pay for paper. We have to pay for internet. We have to pay for, all the things, and we have to pay me, Severo, those kind of things, or we won't show up to work.
Right.
So we had to come up, okay, here's a different way to do it. And a lot of people were getting their news online. And so therefore, there it is.
So the internet made business models change for a lot of folks.
Absolutely.
But in addition to, and this may be a question that outside of y'all's realm of expertise, because it would deal with sales and subscriptions, but clicks to your online, those are monetized with the ads on your website, correct?
To one degree,
to
some degree.
Okay.
Clicks are more of a rating of the value of the product. So you take it to an advertiser and say, hey, these are the number of whatever clicks that come through. And we still do, even after the paywall was instituted, even after, we still do a pretty good we have a very large online presence.
Yeah.
And so that's how a salesman would come up and say, hey, we have this many impressions. We have this is how long the people stay on the site, all that kind of stuff. This is the value. This is why we think you should have an ad place.
And you get what you pay for at the end of the day. Sure, you can, there are a million other places to get information about this thing that you want, or this person. In a small town, there are less places to get information about maybe that person, or that arrest, or that incident that happened. Mm-hmm. So you only around here you only have a few meeting. Yes, you only have a few channels to get that information, and it's up to you to decide, okay, there are some free places to get that information. Can I rely completely on those free places, or do I pay a little bit and know that the Rome News Tribune has, usually we send depending on the issue, we send up a reporter there. That person takes photos. That person was there. Yes, that person was there.
They're trained.
Yes, and we have all this experience. Like, obviously, I've been doing this for
comes in,
17
says, this
years.
is what we saw. We talk about it. We have a conversation about what and how we're going to present that story. Even Severo will weigh in. Whomever. If it's something that's really salacious or big or something, something that really needs more consideration, then I'll pull more people in, like from around the state, because we have newspapers around the state, and I'll say, hey, I want you to take a look at this. This is what we're seeing, that kind of thing. If I have concerns,
or you can get that same information from, Jessica on Facebook, who says, my granddaddy's neighbor just told me that she heard that blah, blah, blah. Again, you can get that information that way, or you can our thing is that we talk to the experts. We talk to the police chief. We'll talk to the fire chief. We'll talk to the owner of this company.
Yes. We'll also talk to people involved. So not just, the officials, and I'm making air quotes as I say that.
This is audio. So
right. I need some video, Roger. Anyway, I'm talking with my hands a lot. Sorry. But we also go out and talk to people. And I'll say this, and I tell people this all the time. If I put 90% of the things I heard in a given day in the newspaper, y'all run me out of town. We go through and we look at it and we go, is this important? What does this matter? How does this affect this person's life? Right? All these questions, and then we go through and actually really consider that.
Well, yeah, that's called journalistic integrity.
Right. Well, that's the attempt, right? We're making an attempt at that every day, and sometimes we fail, and hopefully we pass more often. Yeah.
This subscribing to a newspaper. Okay. It's changed. It's online. You should still subscribe if you want, to get the paper.
That would be our argument.
Because 180 years ago, you were still paying your dime for it. So what's the difference?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's interesting that people would balk at that, but
okay. We're all on the same side at this table for sure.
So, where do you get your ideas for your columns? The really, the really funny ones.
Does he write them?
A lot of times,
the ones that aren't funny. I don't care where you get those.
Let me
ideas.
just first start off by saying that my columns could be 100 times funnier, except John goes through and edits them, and he takes out all the stuff that I think is really funny, but he says we'll get sued over, and I'm doing air quotes too.
That's absolutely true.
But yeah, so I think they could be a lot funnier.
Sparrow's column. You're welcome.
You should do two versions.
I should.
A secret version.
I'll do my own. Yeah, my own. I'll start
and
a
charge.
Podcast. Yeah.
And charge for it.
But so my columns usually are things that happen in and around Rome. A lot of times they happen to me or to my friends, and there are some weeks where my column comes out on Tuesday mornings, or on Tuesdays, and sometimes something will happen over that weekend, or I'll just be sitting on an idea and I already know exactly what I'm going to write, and it comes easily to me. And there are sometimes when I'm like, it's Monday and my deadline's coming up, and I'm walking around the newsroom going, I need a funny idea. Like, tell me something funny. So
Can I interject here?
Sure.
And then I'll say, hey, here's 3 ideas, and he'll look at me.
Like, no.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, there's just not.
Thanks for commenting.
But and that's what I want people to know is that the things I write are 90% just for entertainment. So if I poke fun at something, or if I mention someone or something in our town, it's usually out of love, and it's just for entertainment. But what I find that people respond to is things that they can relate to. Mm-hmm. So even if it's not this big grand idea, even if it's just like, oh, here's what my neighbor's granny did yesterday, like this really funny thing, like people seem to respond to that because they're like, my neighbor's granny did the same thing, or my mom has the same, that same piece of furniture in her kitchen or whatever it is, and so people can relate to that. And so I find that when I write about my family, about because I have my people are in Polk County and Rockmart and Eastham Hill and Cedartown. When I write about that, I get a lot of feedback because people either know those people or they can relate. They say, because everybody has an Eastham Hill. That's where my family goes for get-togethers, and it's just this little town in Polk County, a little community actually. But everybody has that little community where they come from, or near where they're from, and so a lot of people can relate to those things. So I find that when I write about the stuff that I really put my heart and soul and passion into, nobody cares about. It's the stuff. It's
also let me say this behind the scenes when he's making fun of somebody, I often make him call that person
and double check
and say, you good with this?
Is it okay? Is it okay if I write about, what
good
happened
with
to you
this?
and your dog yesterday at the park or whatever,
And they'll be like, oh yeah, no, that's
Because the
good.
point, again,
Okay.
the point isn't to embarrass people. The point is just to make fun of a situation and to entertain, give people a laugh. And that's at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. I just want to make people laugh. And so if I can do that with my columns, great. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes I bomb, and I completely own that. Sometimes just I fall flat on my face and nobody thinks
I
it's
think those
funny.
are usually the columns I like.
Yes. John likes the safe ones, the ones that are just
That's
they're
not
just
true. I like where you're
uplifting.
actually like talking about things, not just
making
Well,
fun.
and sometimes if it's a thought that crossed your mind, but reading the column, you talk about people might identify with that. Oh, I'm familiar with that situation. But it also makes people think. Like when you have asked for, what was the one, like country music songs, or just things like that.
Yeah.
It makes everybody else start thinking, oh, okay, that's a great idea. Let me think of some ideas.
What I get a lot of is when I write, I write a lot of things that I am annoyed by. And then what I
country
find
music
is
one of
that,
them?
no, I love country music. I really, but I write about things, like maybe annoying things on social media that people need to stop.
Right.
So I'll write a whole list
yeah.
of that, and then people will share that because they're thinking the same thing. They just didn't want to tell their sister to quit your annoying damn, whatever. But if I
Tired of
say
seeing
it,
pictures of food.
yes, but if I say it, then they post that. So it's not them saying it; it's me. I get I'm the bad guy, but that's fine. I'll be that. But people love that. People love when they can just say, I'll just leave this here, and they post my column because there's stuff in there that they really want to say to their friends and family, but they can't because it'll come off as
and
rude.
it's kind of also interesting in that, like, where you have those different levels of. We talked about we had different customers. We have the customers online. We have customers in print. And that would be one of those that really appeals to that online base. Like you see more shares.
Yes.
Like I know definitely about the things that we need to stop in 2023. We saw more shares. We saw more of that kind of like, oh yeah, number 7. You should definitely consider that.
Yeah.
What's it like to be locally famous?
That's Severo.
As
You're in a book. So that's like real.
Oh yeah, so yeah, it's legit.
I have
Yeah.
the book. Yeah. And I didn't even know I
Famous
was going to be in the
people
book
in
till
Rome.
someone showed me.
I
But
think you had boxing gloves on.
it was like legendary Romans. Anyway, but Pam will tell you this. Like it's to be, and I wouldn't say, but I would say a lot of people know my face because my face goes with my column in the paper and online. So a lot of people know my face. So if I'm eating anywhere in Rome, people constantly just come to the table and they'll say, most people are very kind and they'll say, I love what you said about blah, blah, blah. And they'll reference a recent column or something. Or sometimes they'll say, I don't think you're funny. Like they'll come up to my table. But
Those are my favorite.
That happens a lot.
I love it when we're having lunch. with that.
Yes. People will just come up to me and they'll say things that I love when people introduce themselves, whether they are not fans or they enjoy what I write. They'll introduce themselves and they'll say, "Hey, my name is blah blah blah. I live over in Lindale, and I read what you said about blah blah blah. I know her. I grew up. I love those connections.
Absolutely.
So that's the favorite part of me of being well known is that." People feel like because of my columns, people feel like they know me, so they come up and they talk to me, and I like that because I'm a very personable. I like to think I'm very personable.
That's the celebrity part. Because I get to do all the tough stories,
The hard stuff.
When I call somebody, they're like, "Hey, John, how are you?" I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I was actually just calling you to ask you something completely basic today.
And they were nervous.
Yeah, super nervous.
It's like the difference of Jerry Seinfeld calling or 60 Minutes calling.
And I won't lie, I absolutely hate that. Like, it's like, it's just like, hi. So I'm like,
With trepidation. Hello.
absolutely.
Let's do a whole series of Get to Know John. He's nice.
Yeah.
So coming down the stretch here, what do we need? We need people to start subscribing online and quit complaining about it.
I would say I would argue please subscribe online because that's our newsroom budget.
Yeah, okay.
that would be great.
And let me add, subscribe online if you feel that the product is worth your money as compared to where you can get that information, where other places you can get that information for free. So we're not saying just give us money. We're saying if you believe that we put out a good product and it has value, then subscribe online.
Because I would argue, I think we feel that we will earn that.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I said, as compared, look at the other free places you can get and literally compare, put our product side by side with theirs and read a story of ours and read a story or a post of theirs and see what you're getting for your money and what you're getting for free. That's what we want you to do, is just to consider the value of it.
Well, and plus you get the 50 years and the 100 years and the.
We put out a lot of stuff.
And you get my columns, which are
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. So
local sports and, just.
And Alex, our sports editor, Alex, does an amazing job of covering local sports.
yeah,
There's a lot.
he's a department of one, and he has to cover everything. So every time people complain, they're like, "Oh, you didn't go to my son's wrestling tournament, or my daughter has a volleyball game over at Model, and my niece, she's playing softball at Pepperell."
Yeah.
So Alex, that one guy, has to make sure that we cover as many of those things. We absolutely can't
And
cover
he goes
every
to
game.
2 to 3 games a night. Easy.
Yes.
I mean, he is really just like knocking it out of the park.
Bless his heart.
And he does it, you know why? Because he loves it.
Yes, he loves sports, and he loves local
so much
sports.
time trying to get Alex to come back. And he was just like, I would love to. And we got him there, and he just loves it.
But again, that's another thing that, that goes to show that we really put a lot of effort and a lot of heart into this product. And I only want people to pay for it if they feel that it has value, because we absolutely believe that it has value.
Well, if they, of course it has value. They just need to experience it for themselves, is your point. So they'll grow to appreciate that. But forever, your guys are Rome, Georgia. I mean, just 100 and whatever years it was, 180 years. So, of course, the industry has changed, and that makes business models change. But that businesses of COVID, everybody's taking a hit. So, let's support the local paper, folks.
Yeah.
For those of you listening.
And if I can add, so if you're a chamber member, you already give us money. So you're prepaid at the chamber. And Amber has a few things. If you don't think you have something that goes in the paper, the chamber has some opportunities for you to get some exposure. So
Yes.
Amber's going to tell you about these things.
So one thing is our business brief email that goes out weekly. So if you ever have anything that is like you're celebrating something, you have your business has decided to add a whole new line of things, let us know. Send that to us. We love to hear things, what's going on with you and your company. And then also just make sure that you are updating your information on our website. You can log in and do that. There's a great about page that you can create. You can show pictures of your products and your services that you're offering. So that's a great way to really show and get the word out there, because when they Google you, that pops up. So that's a great way to do it. And then hosting events and attending events with us. That's a great way to just do some one-on-one. And that word of mouth, we all know, is huge. So telling your story that way makes an impact.
Yeah. I think networking is kind of a dying skill, but we at the chamber are hanging on and want you to come hang out with us and meet your friends and meet your business partners. So don't forget.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just sitting here thinking about how long the paper's been around. How long has the chamber been around? Do we know? Am I hitting y'all with a question?
Oh, we do know.
It's been
Quick, we need to fill some air while Amber furiously looks this up on her phone right now.
I think we are the oldest chamber member.
Oh,
Like
that
as
would
the
be some fun
newspaper.
information.
Yeah.
We should do a post with our oldest chamber members, a social media post. That
And
would
if
be
it's
fun.
us, then yes, then definitely only if it's us.
But
Only
also,
if it's
I mean,
us.
in building on what Amber said earlier, that like Pam and Amber also know how to get in touch with us, and often are like, "Hey, did you know this?" And I may not have known that, or I may have been covering something else and not paying attention to business. And I'm always looking for a good business story, and they can get you guys in touch with us as well.
Yeah.
We were established in 1910
wow.
as the Rome. Well,
As the Rome Floyd.
yeah, we've had different names.
There was probably an advocacy group maybe
Yes.
before that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. So, and you guys are we think perhaps the oldest member.
We're hoping. We'll see. We'll see.
I was told that.
We'll do so. Yeah.
Then it's
If
true.
Pam can go back into their archives and do a little research, that would be great. But I wanted to add
somebody will troll us.
Oh, yeah. There's somebody out there right now like, we're the oldest member.
I wanted to add about, and this is another thing about being like well known locally that people will find entertaining, is that there are a couple satire pages in Rome, and one of them seems to like me and the other doesn't like me. So if you don't like me, if you're not a fan of Severo, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are, there's one, I think it's called Beautiful Rome, Georgia, or something like that, and they don't like me. So they say not kind things about me. So that's your place. If you like that, that's your place to go. The other one, it's the City of Rome. It's a City of Rome satire page, and so they seem to like me. They call me Sergio Alvarez, but they say nice things sometimes. So there are two camps. If you're not a fan of Severo, there's a place for you.
It's the price of
But both of these satire pages stress me out a lot.
They do. And
and that being said, as we get our online, like where just anybody puts anything online, we see that, and every once in a while somebody's like, oh, I can't believe y'all aren't doing a story about the crocodiles or whatever, or sharks,
satire,
or the rabid beavers in Armurchie Creek.
Absolutely. Yeah. All this stuff, and it was just like, yeah, because it's not true.
Yeah, we got to deal with that.
I can't believe your name's been Sergio all this time. Yes. Okay. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I think we're...
Just remember to call all of us if you need anything.
Yeah.
Websites?
RomeGA.com.
RN-T.com.
NorthwestGeorgiaNews.com. Actually, RN-T.com also goes there, but it's the hyphen.
It's just
that hyphen's confusing people.
Those are confusing.
Is that like we get that every day? So people call, they're like, "What's your email?" Because usually we get, "I don't do computers," and so if they do computers, then they'll say, "What's your email?" And I'll say it's RN-T, and then they're hyphen. Is that like a line? Is that like a dash? So I
sense a column coming on.
So I really resent whoever came up a million years ago. Whoever came up with our email address and because
I feel
that
like
hyphen.
At one time it was like a perceived cost saving measure or something like that.
Maybe.
Like they didn't want to buy that.
Or you could be like my husband who pronounces the hyphen in my last name just to make fun of me for hyphenating my last name.
Oh, really?
So he says it out loud when he's
Pam Powers Hyphen
This
Smith.
is Pam Powers Hyphen Smith.
Yeah, because I call you Pam Powers Smith, but I'm going to add the hyphen because that's
Right.
just.
I had never really noticed it until yesterday, and I was writing that little story about the entrepreneur workshop coming up, and I was just like, Power Smith said. Oh, jeez.
This is
Said
hard.
Power Smith,
This is
and I was, like,
annoying.
going through. There's nothing wrong with it. My wife hyphenates her name. All about it.
We're gonna have a club. We're gonna start a club.
I'm working on a column right now in my head.
Is it hashtag, the pound sign, or tic-tac-toe?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
It's all of the above. Anyway, okay. Well, thank y'all. This has been fun. We laughed for like 40 minutes. This is great. Thank y'all so much for listening. This has been the Rome Floyd Chamber Small Business Spotlight. We broadcast from the Hardy Realty Studios on Broad Street in downtown Rome, and we work in cooperation with the Rome News Tribune. Thanks for listening.